session of the Laurel City Council. This is Wednesday, November the 2nd, 2016 at 7 p.m. I'll call the work session to order. Item number 1 is the discussion of the City of Laurel Committee analysis, and I'll call Ms. Luann Crook to give us an overview, if she would, please. Ms. Crook?
Thank you, Mr. President. You have before you the administration's analysis of the city's current boards, commissions, and committees. At each tab in the notebook, we've provided information about each committee, when and how it was established, its mission or purpose, the membership, and summaries of the meeting dates, attendance, and action items for about the last 18 months. We have agreed to examine each of the committees and discuss which to continue, revise, consolidate, or do away with. To begin with, I refer you to the table of contents page and ask you to note that number 1, Board of Appeals, number 2, Board of Elections Supervisors, number 8, the Ethics Commission, number 9, the Historic District Commission, and number 12, the Planning Commission, are all mandated by state law, and we should save our discussion on those for another evening. For tonight, I would recommend that you begin discussion on number 3, which is the Board of Trustees for the pension plans, number 4, Cable Television CAC, number 5, the Community Redevelopment Authority, and number 6, the Environmental Affairs Committee. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So we will follow Ms. Crook's recommendation. So we will turn to item number 3. What I'd like to do is openly discuss, if you happen to be on one of those committees, openly discuss how you feel about the committee, how you feel about the way that it's generated, how it's set up, and any other comments that you may have that may help us to better understand. My intent is to lead us through, based on what Ms. Crook has done, the hard work that she's put into this, and to then at the conclusion of our work sessions, I don't intend to have it all done tonight. 3, 4, 5, and 6 are a good start. And then we will have a summation at one of our work sessions in the time to come, hopefully before the first of the year. So that means we have one more to go after this. So with number 3, that would be the Board of Trustees for the City of Laurel Retirement Plans. If you haven't, if you would take a moment and review that, and if you have any questions, please put them forth. If not, just write them down in the column that's to the right of the item, and then we will have those questions answered at a time in the future. Mayor Mo?
Actually, just what we might want to do is, just was thinking, the staff person from, if there is staff for each of the committees, or in this case the board, might want to come to the microphone and maybe suggest anything or highlight or answer any questions that may have. In this case, it would be Mr. Green. I know we're catching them off guard, but again, this is most of them have been staffing these committees for a while, so they may have questions as well.
That'd be fine.
I have no particular presentation. The board is put together to oversee the funds for the City of Laurel retirement plans. It has done so for many years. I have been staffed to the board probably since its inception. And if you have any questions about it, I'll be glad to answer them.
I was going to say, probably for everybody, the questions may be, in particular for all of them, how is the membership? Does it need to be adjusted? Are they participating? And any other suggestions, in particular the CACs. But Mike, anything, suggestions you may have that need to be adjusted, or is it fine? If it's fine, I think that's what they want to hear.
I think it's fine. We have, 5 that are appointed by the mayor. Their participation has been very good. We have 2 that are representing the membership of the actual plans, one from the police department, one from the employee plan. And they've also been very good at participating. So I have no particular recommendation to adjust the membership.
Okay. All right, we'll start with questions. Ms. Curry, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Les?
How often do you meet, Mike?
Quarterly, at least quarterly.
Okay, and when does the consultant come in to those meetings? Or you only
Legal
call-
counsel is there at all of them.
Okay.
The manager for the investments is there at all of them.
Okay,
The actuary is there at least once
okay.
to
So they
to
provide
present their
input
evaluation.
as part of the meeting.
Pardon?
They provide input as part of the meeting.
Yes, they do.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Nicholas?
It sounds like it's pretty well attended.
It
It
is.
is, okay. Yeah. No other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Appreciate it.
All right.
The next one we have up is the Laurel Cable Television Citizens Advisory Committee. Ms. Barnes?
I've been here 2.5 years and have had no involvement with this committee at all. So I would be starting from scratch as far as making recommendations about whether it's necessary, the composition of it, no involvement at all.
Do you see any need for this committee?
I think it's always good to have citizen input. So probably, yeah, I think it would be beneficial.
Would you do us a favor and kind of look at this and give us some kind of feedback in the future so that we can take a look at what that would be, so we could get a picture of what your vision would be?
Sure.
I appreciate that very much.
Okay.
Ms. Creary?
After she advises.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure you didn't have something else you wanted. Mr. Les, anything?
Yeah. You know, since the whole operation of the cable station has changed, in my mind, I mean, I'll ask the question. I'll wait for Audrey's input, but I would beg the question: is it necessary under the current structure that we have? I'll just throw that out and let it sort of simmer a little bit, pending receipt of Audrey's suggestion. I mean, there may be other ways to get input from the public about the operation, but again, I know they used to meet. They used to manage the budget of the station and so on. And I think with the way we're structured now, we may have outlived that model. I'll just suggest that, Mr. President.
Well, again, she said that she saw some input from the citizens as something that would be necessary. So we'll wait for your feedback and take further action in the future. Anything else from you, Mrs. Nicholas? No. Thank you very much. Let's move on to, I'm sorry?
I got something.
Oh, you got, go ahead, Mayor.
Let me, Mike is exactly right. It has changed. If you remember, there used to be 3, almost 4 different ordinances regarding cable and the cable foundation. We're not going to, and I'll get with Audrey, I have something that I've had for quite some time, not necessarily cable, but something communication-wide, where it would be made up of citizens that would have input regarding, give feedback to the communications department regarding, the access and what would be viewed. So there will be something. We're going to have some citizen input regarding this. This one has been sitting around on the books for a long time, and it just needs to really go away. But the citizen input regarding access and other things really does need to have some input. So we'll come up with something and make sure.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll go on to item number, the Community Redevelopment Authority. Ms. Curry, would you care to give us some input on that, please?
Excellent committee. A lot of the work that we get done, we've had 2 members that have had problems with making the meetings. We meet once a month and discuss many things, and the redevelopment area and many minor things that come up in connection with those properties and major. And with the help of the Jack Brock, and also with our attorneys from the city. It's a very thorough committee, and a lot of good decisions are being made at this time. And I think the two that have had problems making the meetings have been more consistent as of late.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the council? Mr. Les?
I'm fine with this one.
Ms. Nicholas?
I'm fine with it.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the Environmental Affairs Citizens Advisory Committee. And well, Mr. Smalls is not here, so is there anyone that can represent to us what they have been doing?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I know that the Environmental Affairs has a meeting scheduled for tomorrow night, but they have not been meeting regularly. The last meeting was about a year ago.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else from you, Mr. Fleming? Okay, thank you very much. All right, we'll take up the other items at our next, go ahead, Mayor.
Here's the other thing that council needs to have some discussion as you move forward with the CACs in particular. And that is, if you remember, these used to be council committees where a council would run the committee. Now it moved away from that. In some cases, some moved back to that. So there needs to be discussion on how you want that done, or do you want the citizen, or do you want council on every committee, those type of things. So you really need to discuss that as well as you continue to move forward with the makeup on these committees. And in some cases, maybe you want two council, and on some committees you don't want any. So I think you should take a look at that and discuss those things as well as you move forward.
Well, as far as my committee is concerned, I've always run my committee, and Ms. Nicholas is the alternate, and she comes from time to time, or when I advise her of something really important that's coming up. Ms. Query, do you care to comment?
I think it's a good point the mayor's made, but I think too that what has to be taken into consideration is the personalities on that particular committee, because some will glide right into the position of chair. And I know for years, one of the committee, there was a gentleman that ran it for probably 12 years that was a citizen. So you have to look at the committees and who's on it, and do you have people that can feed into that chair?
Thank you. Mr. Les? Okay, Ms. Nicholas? Okay, thank you, Mayor. All right, we'll move on to our regular agenda, and again, I want to thank Ms. Crook for doing a fine job here for us, and we'll be working on this in the near future. Return to our regular agenda, and this is item number 2. It's ordinance number 1889, an ordinance to amend section 17-136 of the Laurel City Code to designate a speed limit for Brooklyn Bridge Road and Old Sandy Spring Road. Mr. Free.
Yes, since obtaining these roads from the county, Brooklyn Bridge Road, about a year or so ago, we had Breckford do a speed analysis on this roadway. And basically, 85% of the people traveling this road really never dropped down below 35 miles an hour. Coming from the west, when you come over 95, the speed limit drops right there to 30. And as you approach Dorset Road, just past that, it drops to 25. Most people are not even slowing down. It continues to be 35. I know when I came to the city, the road was 35 mile an hour. I believe that as the developments took place out there, the county did drop it down some. And at this time, we were just trying to make it look or get it to a realistic speed of 30 mile an hour until you get up to Patuxent Road.
Okay. Ms. Crary, any questions?
No, I think it's an excellent idea, especially not only coming up on the stop sign, but the park's right there too. So we're going to have people at times crossing the road. And certainly from one of the senior housing, I believe it's Willow Spring, they cross over too and go for their walk. So it should be a slower speed there.
Yeah, right there at Schweitzer Park.
Mr. Les?
I think it was interesting, we had a resident that came when we were talking about this and asked him what he thought of 25. He thought it was fine. I think that what's happened is exactly what you said. The development sort of came about. We had a road that used to run all the way through before they built 95. It used to be 35, 45 miles an hour through there. And I think some of the people have forgotten that it dead ends. We got kids out there, children, and I think this is very appropriate. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Nicholas?
I agree. Anything to improve safety for our pedestrians and other passengers, yes.
Okay, thank you. This will be on our agenda for possible action on November the 14th at 7 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Free. Number 3 on our schedule tonight, ordinance number 1887, an ordinance to amend the operating budget of the Mayor and City Council of Laurel, Maryland, with the fiscal year of July the 1st, 2016 through June the 30th of 2017. Ms. Saylor.
Mr. President, Ordinance 1887 is a companion ordinance to Ordinance 1883, which the council adopted at the last meeting to provide $250,000 from the unassigned fund balance to provide tax credits and other financial incentives for economic development activities. So it is has a net effect of 0 on the bottom line of the budget, but it shows a reduction in the real estate tax revenue and then an offsetting increase in fund transfers. There are no changes to the expenditure side at this time.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Ms. Nicholas?
No questions.
Mr. Les? Ms. Crary?
I'm fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Saylor.
Yes, sir.
Item number 4, ordinance number 1888, an ordinance to amend certain projects budgets in the FY 2017 through the FY 2022 Capital Improvement Program. Mr. Free, you're going to take it? Okay.
This ordinance actually establishes a project for Memorial Gardens with the installation of the 9/11 memorial and provides funding for that, as well as other future ideas that are in the planning stages. Excuse me. These funds are the last remaining from a transfer from FY 2015 funds that were until now not allocated to a specific project. The increase to the fleet equipment acquisition project is $400,000 to make cash purchases of vehicles on our replacement schedule as needed or in future budget years, but these funds came from a transfer made by the FY 2016 general operating budget.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the council? Ms. Nicholas? Mr. Les? Ms. Crary?
Will this be spread out as the one before, 2016 through 2021?
I'm sorry?
The 400,000, will it be spread out, 16 through 2021?
I can't say that it will be spread through the whole 5-year program. Currently, we don't have funding for the FY 2018 vehicles that need to be purchased. We've been fortunate enough to be able to use the net revenue of the speed camera funds to purchase all the vehicles for the police department. So these would be non-police related vehicles. But at the current time, we don't have any funding besides this going into the 2018. So I can't say that it will extend beyond 2018. I'm sorry, I don't remember the number off the replacement schedule at this time.
No further questions.
Mayor, you have anything? Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Saylor. Appreciate it. This will be on our agenda again for November the 14th at 7 p.m. Item number 5, ordinance number 1890, an ordinance to amend the operation of the City of Laurel Employment Retirement Plan effective on or after July 1st of 2016 by changing the mortality table used for funding purposes. Mr. Green.
Yes, Mr. President. With your permission, we will address this and the next item together. They are mirror images applying to the police plan and the employee plan. This was recommended by the city's actuary, Bolton Partners, and has been reviewed and recommended by the Board of Trustees. The last time we updated our mortality table was about 1 year ago. At that time, it was the current one, or at the time it was proposed, it was the current one. By the time it was adopted, IRS had recognized a new mortality table. That's the one that we're bringing to you now. The city would be absolutely up to date and probably a little bit ahead of the curve from most other plans by adopting this plan or these tables. Well, it has happened before.
We'll start with Mr. Liz. Comments?
Other plans probably won't be adopting until next year or the year after. And I don't think the IRS is going to have another set out, but at least we'll be ahead of the curve because we're. Thank you.
Thank you.
Audrey has to keep reminding me to make sure it's green. Thank you, Audrey. Okay. And what's important is that when we're all gone from here and all these wonderful employees that we have in the city retire, we want to make sure that there's enough in the fund to cover what was promised to them. And I think we do a good job in the city. We're in the 70-something percentile, and that's pretty good when I look at other plans around the United States. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Query, anything further?
Yeah, I think it dovetails into the previous ordinance where we were discussing Memorial Gardens if we're all going to be gone. Put something up for us. I just want to know if at a later date, will this change result in changes in the how we finance this and adding money to it because of the mortality change?
Yes, it will. This should most accurately reflect the city's liability, and it is anticipated it would increase our annual contribution by about $100,000.
Sure, they don't go down.
Yeah, it never goes down.
Mr. Nicholas.
I think this is great. Anything to keep us in good stand with IRS is outstanding. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll move on to, again, this item will be on our agenda for possible action on November the 14th. Item number 6, ordinance number 1891, an ordinance to amend the operations of the City of Laurel Police Retirement Plan effective on or after July 1st, 2016 by changing the mortality table used to fund that purpose. Mr. Green.
This is the mirror image of what we just talked about.
Okay, is there any other questions about this topic? Thank you, Mr. Green. Move on to item number 7, ordinance number 1892, an ordinance to modify the operation of the City of Laurel Employment Retirement Program effective on or after July 1st, 2016 to increase the smoothing period.
Here again, we have two ordinances, one on the employee plan and one on the police plan, that are exact images or mirror images of each other. A smoothing period is how you would regulate or modify the city's annual contribution based on gains or losses during the prior year. If the fund had a major gain in 1 year, then our contribution would go down. If we had a major loss, it would go up, and not by a little. We're talking big bucks. It's very difficult to budget these contributions when they go up and down from year to year. So right now we have a smoothing period of 3 years. What this means is we recognize all the gains and losses from the prior 3 years. We recognize 1/3 of each for the prior 3 years in determining what our contribution, what the city's contribution should be to the plan. Our actuary tells us that this is very good, but a little shorter than most plans that they're familiar with. 5 years is by and far the more common. It would, instead of recognizing 1/3, we would recognize 20% of the gains and losses from each year or each of the prior 5 years. With the market being as volatile as it is, this should help better control our annual contribution to the plans. This was recommended by our actuary, again, Bolton Partners, and was reviewed and recommended unanimously by the Board of Trustees for your consideration.
Thank you. Any questions? Again, this is pretty much the same topic. Any questions from council? Yes, Mayor.
Mike, on the police side, any of this contract, does this have to be approved or what?
None of these ordinances actually would affect the employee's retirement benefit. It's simply how the plan is operated and would affect how the city contributes to the plan, but it would have no effect on them whatever.
But nothing on the contract is what I meant.
I don't believe so.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, let's move on to item number 8. This is an ordinance number 1893, an ordinance to modify the operation of the City of Laurel Police Retirement Plan effective on or after July 1st, 2016, and attempt to the smoothing period. There's another one of those.
Again, this is the mirror
Same
image of
thing.
what we just talked about.
Is there anything further we want to know about this? Right. Okay. Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Green.
Thank you.
At the president's prerogative, I've added,
I'm sorry.
it's it?
Yeah, you don't want to add that. We've already added, you already added that to the agenda.
Oh, I did add it,
You
okay.
did add it, so don't read that.
Okay, cool. All right, that's it, that's all we have for tonight.
No, I'm sorry. You're going to go on to. You already added it.
I added it, okay.
Yeah. That one.
Okay. This item number 8, ordinance number 1894, an ordinance amending the Laurel City Code, Chapter 17, Traffic, Article 3, Stopping, Standing, and Parking, Division 2, Metered Parking, to extend the application of the metered parking provision to the public parking lots. This is sponsored by Councilmember Crary. I'll read it into the record for the first time. I'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this work session, so we don't, oh, that's right. Okay. Donna, you want to say anything first before here, Ms. Fleming?
No, Mr. Fleming can go first.
Okay, Mr. Fleming?
Thank you, Mr. President. What you have before you is an ordinance that addresses something that we used to have many years ago when we had parking meters up and down the length of Main Street. When the CRA developed the parking lot in the 500 block of Main Street, we posted some regulations there. However, as pointed out by the chief of police, the regulations that were posted were not contained in our traffic ordinance, so he could not enforce them. So what you have before you is an ordinance that basically brings us up to speed on the posting that is on the parking lot. It enables us to enforce metered parking again and also overnight parking.
like to thank Luann Crook, Chief of Staff, and Mr. Fleming, and also the Chief for their input on this. And I think with collective brains, we came up with a pretty good statute, and we also allowed some leeway in there for it to expand in years to come, so that we won't have to revisit this, hopefully, for quite some time.
Mr. Les.
I'm fine.
Ms. Nick. So this is gonna cover both parking meters and the way that we have that parking lot set up.
Yes, this addresses all the posted regulations that are on the lot now.
All right, any other questions from anyone, Dan? Then that's the last thing we have on the agenda, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Just go Cubs.
I'm sorry?
Go Cubs.